DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a bunch of different frameworks. I always say one, but it's actually not one framework. A bunch of different frameworks, a bunch of different ways to approach and solve your problems, a bunch of different strategies, mindsets, and every day I'm giving you something new. This is all, and I've got a bunch of books as well, and a daily masterclass, all of this under the umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to check yourself for bias, B-I-A-S. How can you check yourself for bias? There is a way to do it, and it's important that you know how to do it, and I'll explain all of that here today. Now, before I do so, let me tell everybody that I send out a daily motivation text every morning that I want you to be receiving. So to get that daily motivation text, I need you to just send me a quick text to say hello at this number, 305-384-6894. Once you text me at that number, we'll confirm that it's you. And once you're in my texting community, every morning when I send out my daily motivation text, it will go also straight to you, straight to your phone. And again, that number is 305-384-6894. Another good thing about that text line is that I spend time every day replying to my text. So if you have a question or challenge or something that you want to share with me, you can send me a text to that number at any time. And when I get around to checking my text every single day, I will get to yours and I will respond. I respond to all my texts. So all that said, let's get into the topic here today. Let's get a definition of this word bias, since we're talking about checking yourself for it. Definition of bias is prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. Now, here's the thing about bias. We're going to learn how to check ourselves for it because we all have biases and we all are biased on certain things, whether against or for certain things, ideas, habits, people, places, whatever. The thing is, often we are blind to our own bias. So I want each of us to be a little bit more conscious of the biases that we have so that when something does happen and our bias is causing us to make a decision, we can at least acknowledge that that's what's happening. When we're conscious of it, maybe that'll help us make a better decision. Maybe that'll help keep us out of trouble. Maybe that'll move us more towards something that we actually want instead of moving us towards things that we don't want. So this is how you check yourself for bias. That is the topic here today, and we all have it, so you should be listening. Don't think that you're free of bias. Everybody thinks, not everybody, many people believe that they are free of bias, but all of us have bias because we're human beings, and this is just how it is. Point number one. Topic again, how to check yourself for bias. If you are letting your personal opinions get in the way of factual analysis, you are being biased. I'll say it again. When you allow your personal opinions to get in the way of factual analysis, you are being biased. Because factual analysis, if you're doing something that requires facts, then you probably want to go with whatever the facts are telling you, whatever the black and white statistics, the data is telling you, that's what you want to go with when you're doing something that requires being factually accurate. For example, if you work in finance, it probably makes sense to base your decisions off of facts, of things that you can calculate and numbers and just hard black and white data. You don't want to be basing your decisions when it comes to however you're doing things, whatever you happen to be doing is based in finance. You want to be basing your decisions on emotions. You don't want to be basing them on your personal opinion of the person or even your personal opinion of what somebody's going to do with their money or what you're going to do with your money. You probably want to base it on some data. Now, I'm not saying opinions don't matter at all, but you probably want to lean more towards the data when it comes to something like that. Now, if you're doing something such as, on the other hand, let's say you're an artist, you're a singer or a painter, then maybe your personal opinion matters a little bit more than any kind of factual analysis. No factual analysis to art. Art is not factual. Art is not about things being factual. Art is about expression, and expression is literally an opinion. So being biased is when you're letting your opinions get in the way of some factual analysis that could be taking place. Opinions are a human thing. So all human beings have opinions. So don't feel bad when you are expressing one or you're thinking about one. And we have a bunch of opinions, not just a few, but a bunch of them, and we should. However, sometimes in life we need to look at things on a more logical and factual level, on a black and white level. Sometimes it'll help us to do this. In such cases, opinions don't matter as much. Anyone who, again, works in something like finance or science or mathematics, opinions don't matter that much in those places. Now, opinions do matter somewhat, but in terms of doing the actual work, the actual finance work, the science work, the mathematics work, opinions don't matter hardly at all. Now, opinions can matter if you're talking about, office politics and people working together and communications. Yeah, opinions can matter in that sense. But when we're talking about the actual work itself, no, opinions don't matter in science. Only maybe when you're writing up your conclusion of what you found, but that's also going to be backed by a ton of data. Opinions do not matter that much in certain places in life. Now, while they can help us decide what to try out or where to look, we can always come back to the facts of a situation, the facts of past results, which are clear in black and white and will help us figure out what we need to do or not do, where we should go or not go, what comes next, what comes last, etc. But do not allow your personal opinions to get in the way of factual analysis. When you start doing that, then you're being biased. And from that point forward, every conclusion that you come to based on that first one is going to be flawed simply because you don't have the right elements in place. One of the elements being factual analysis. You're going off your opinions instead. That is a strong sign of bias. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to check yourself for bias. Number 2, you are listening less or more based on the source of the input. Now, this one is, almost everybody's guilty of this. And it makes sense that everybody's guilty of it because let's think about it. It's impossible for this to completely be eradicated, and it's never going away, but we should know that it exists. I'll give you an example. You will probably listen to your husband or wife on a subject more than you'll listen to some coworker that you hate or some homeless guy hanging at the gas station. You'll probably listen to your spouse a little bit more than you listen to either of those other individuals. Why is this? Because you have more affinity for your spouse. You have been around them more often. You probably respect them a little bit more. You probably know what they have to offer you a little bit more, and they probably know you a lot better than those other individuals. So of course you're going to listen to them more. So it just makes sense you'd be more biased to listen to your wife than you would to listen to some beggar who's asking you for $1 when you pull off the highway. Right? It's just how it works. However, depending on the topic, that coworker who you don't like or that homeless guy under the bridge, they might know more than your spouse does, depending on the topic, of course. When you're dealing with people of seemingly equal information, but different perspectives, such as two people at the same job, but they have different ideas. They both are on the job, they're both responsible for reporting to you, and they both came to you with completely different ideas. Give your ear equally to both with a simple North Star. The North Star is, for those of you who don't know what I mean when I say North Star, is basically the guiding principle that will tell you which direction we're going to go with everything, because this is the outcome that we're trying to get to. So your North Star, whenever you're in charge, whenever you're a boss of an organization, and even if it's just you in an organization, you are the boss. You got to be the boss of yourself. Whenever you're the boss of an organization, the question that you're going to answer for yourself every single time out is, what is my North Star? What best, if you're talking about business or anything that is competition based, you're going to ask yourself, what best helps create the outcome that I'm going for? What's the outcome that I want? And what actions, what ideas, what thoughts, what habits, what people will best help me achieve this outcome? But you got to know what your outcome is to know how to measure other things against the outcome. And Good to Great, written by Jim Collins, one of my favorite books on business. He talked about how the best companies in the world, they do this internally. That companies like Walgreens and other companies who have stayed around for a long time and grown considerably bigger over the years, in companies like that, the employees will sit down at tables and they will fight tooth and nail about what direction in which to take the company. What are we going to do next? What's our next move? What should we do in this situation? But the point of those knockdown, drag out arguments between people at these companies, the great companies, is not about anybody winning or being right necessarily. It's about arguing for what they believe will best help the company move forward. This is why it's so important that you got to get the wrong people off the bus and the right people on the bus, i.e. enact the law of association before you even start doing work when you're dealing with other people. When you got the right people around you, you and that person go back and forth on an idea and be arguing all day, but it's actually going to make both of you sharper, both of you better, and the end result of all that arguing is you're probably going to produce a better output and a better product. Why? Because you had the right people around. You want the right people battling with each other. That's when a team gets even better. A team can become damn near unstoppable. You become like the 92 Barcelona Olympics dream team from the Team USA. All the players on that team were so damn good that practicing against each other got them more than ready for playing against all these other teams in the world that had no chance of competing with them. So it's not always about being right. It's not always about winning. It's about what best helps the community move forward. When music producers, for example, listen to a song and let's say there are 3 verses on a song, the producer's job, and sometimes the artist is involved as well, they pick the verse that is best to help them sell records. They don't just pick any verse. They pick the one that's best going to help me sell records because they know what the outcome is. They have a North Star. So an opinion is fine if someone has one, because a music producer saying this is the record that's going to best help me sell records, that is really their opinion because nobody actually knows. There's no factual way to measure that. It is an opinion, but that opinion is based on business and not based on friendliness. It's not, all right, I'm going to keep this person's verse because they're my friend and throw out this verse which is really good because I don't know this person. That would be bad business for the music producer, bad business for the artist who's throwing away a guest feature simply because they like the other person better, but the other person's rap is not as good in your eyes, so you're picking a person that you know, you're playing politics but hurting your career at the same time. Why do that? It's fine to have opinions, folks. I'm not telling you not to have them. An opinion is good, but it needs to be based on, you need to be clear what your opinion is based on. Is your opinion based on who you like and who you don't like? Is it based on results and not results? What is it based on? You should have answers to these questions before you move on. Point number 3, today's topic once again, is how to check yourself for bias. Point number 3, find the intelligence within an opposing opinion. This is your challenge. This is one of your challenges of communication. And communication is something that we're going to be talking about a lot inside of Work on Your Game Live, which is happening January 21st and 22nd here in Miami. Finding the intelligence inside of an opposing opinion means basically next time someone criticizes you or offers you some constructive feedback or just says something about you that could be taken as negative, the question you're going to ask yourself is not, why is this person a hater? How do I block them? How do I mute them? How do I ignore this person? Instead, ask yourself, where's the intelligence inside of this? Is there something useful inside of the criticism that just got thrown at me? See the episode that I talked about steel manning someone else's position. That was episode 1927. People who think the opposite of you are usually just as smart as you are. They're not dummies. They know things the same way you know things. Now, even though they might not be as smart as you, they're not a lightweight. So your job then is to suss out the smart parts of another person's perspective and give them credit where that credit is due. That is your job. For example, in the United States, we have Democrats and Republicans, but if you ask most people, you ask anyone who is registered and they proudly say that they are a Democrat or a Republican, if you ask them, do you agree with every single thing that the Democratic Party says they stand for? If the Democrats have to write down everything that they're about, and you ask a Democrat, do you agree with every single point on this? They're probably going to say no. And the same thing if you ask a Republican. I think most voters, though, have some from each that they like, each candidate, let's say one Democrat, one Republican, but all of us are stuck with these 2 options, Democrat or Republican. Someone smarter than me should come up with a new system where we can handpick the parts from each that we like and then create the perfect political plan. All right, so we like this part from this side, we like this part from this side, and we're gonna put these all together and we're gonna create something new that's better than either one of them just getting everything that they want, and then we'll make it work that way. But the whole point is here, we're talking about steel manning somebody's point. So when someone comes to you, remember that the topic here today is how to check yourself for bias. So when someone comes to you with something and your normal bias, your triggered bias says, don't listen to this person, don't do what they say, don't say no to anything that they ask. How about instead just listening them out so you can get a better feel for who this person is and what this person is about? And that's the steel man. Listen to this person out and then ask yourself, what's the best part of what they share, and then make it better. That's the steel manning process. And understand that people who think the opposite of you are usually pretty smart. All right? They may not be as intelligent as you, but they are pretty smart. Give them some credit there. And again, look for the intelligence inside of what they said. Even if they're not smart, there may be something intelligent that they said. As they say, even a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day. So let's recap today's class, which is how to check yourself for bias. Bias defined as prejudice in favor of or against one thing, one person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. Point number 1, do not let your personal opinions get in the way of factual analysis. Opinions are human, and we have a bunch of them. However, sometimes we need to look at things logically and factually in a black and white way. Any of you who's in finance, science, mathematics, you understand this. Opinions don't matter that much in those places. They can help us decide who or what to try, or where to look, where to go, we can always come back to the facts of results, which are always clear and in black and white. Point number 2, if you are listening less or more based on the source of input, then you are biased. Understand that this is impossible to completely eradicate, but we do know that it exists. You will probably listen to your husband or wife more than you'll listen to that coworker you hate or that homeless man hanging at the gas station, simply because you have more of a relationship with your spouse. Therefore, you're able to filter everyone else out and only pay attention to that person when they're talking to you, and you may pay much less attention to someone else who you may not know as well, don't have as much affinity for. This is indeed a bias. So this is what I mean when I say we all have biases, and you don't want to get rid of all of your biases. You want to keep some of them because they'll help you save a whole lot of time and a whole lot of thinking. But depending on the topic, understand that that homeless guy or that coworker might know more than your spouse. So when you're dealing with people who are of seemingly equal information, just different perspectives, such as two people at the same job with different ideas, give your ear equally to both with a simple North Star. What best helps create the outcome? That is the goal that we're after. What creates the outcome? If this thing creates more outcome than that thing, then we're doing this thing. Whatever this thing happens to be, we're going to be doing that. Why? Because our North Star is the result. So in Good to Great, Jim Collins talked about how people inside of companies will argue tooth and nail over certain subjects and just battle it out all day. And the reason they did that is not because they weren't friends, not because they had some type of issue with each other personally, is because they were willing to go to knock down, drag out measures in order to figure out what is the best plan of action for the company. Not for me personally, but for the company. When they would ask themselves those questions, then they started getting results. It is about what best helps the company. And when music producers, for example, listen to verses or songs, they pick the verse that is best to sell records. Yes, it is an opinion to pick the one that is best to sell records, but that opinion is based on, hopefully, business and not friendliness. Point number 3, find the intelligence inside of someone's opposing argument. I talked about this in the Steelman episode, number 1927. People who think the opposite of you are usually just as smart as you are. So your job is to suss out the parts of their argument and give credit where the credit is due. The smart parts of the argument, that is. For example, in the United States, we have Democrats, we have Republicans, but do you really agree at every point that the Republican Party is making? I don't think you do. I think most voters have some from each day. They have some from each day. Some opinions, some things that they're thinking of, but the problem is we're stuck with these two options. All right, and usually someone who's on the Democratic side can say, you know what, the Republicans have a couple of good points here. And someone on the Republican side can say, you know what, Democrats have a couple of points over there. So the best outcome, but again, be someone who's smarter than me, handpick the parts, a system where we can handpick each policy. We can pick the parts that we like most, and then we can create the perfect political plan. So all that said, text me to get my daily motivation text. Send me a quick hello at 305-384-6894. Once you have text me also, anyone who's interested in being coached directly from my accountability program, my 3rd-day mastermind is the only place I work with people one-on-one, whether that's with your accountability, getting things done, strategizing, making sure you get your name and your likeness out there so that you can continue building your brand, and of course, turning all of this into money. Then, if you are interested in that, hop on a call with me for free by going to workonyourgame.live/call. workonyourgame.live/call. The call is free. I want to find out who you are, where you're about, where you want to go, how could I be the bridge between the two, and what specifically you are looking for help with. Then we'll go from there. Work on your game. Dre all day.